I went to church every week, went to communion and everything else. I always had a belief in God, but not to the extent of where truly believing in Him, that He really exists. Like I always would say, how could it be something so powerful? How could it be something like that? Till recently, last year, I was diagnosed with brain cancer. Last year, I had my first surgery, last April. And the most amazing thing that I'm happy this happened to me. That was the happiest day of my life because what I experienced. The day before the surgery, I called my wife up. I said, do me a favor, go in my work bag. I was a bus driver. In the bottom is a little pocket Bible that was given to me years ago in the streets of Manhattan.
Katie's Jewish.
Right, my wife is Jewish.
His wife says, bring me the Bible.
Bring me this Bible. She said, what Bible? I said, go into my work bag, this old green bag. It's all the way in the bottom. She found it. She brought it to the hospital the day before my surgery. There was something that I had to have that Bible with me the day of the surgery. She gave it to me. I was on the gurney. They were wheeling me down before the operating room. Now, I'm not knowing if I'm going to survive the surgery, brain surgery, this and that. I held the Bible in my hand, and I was praying, confessing my sins, crying out for the Lord, please, please, please heal me. Let me survive. Please give me another chance. I promise. I says, I will obey. I will become a better person. Because I was always a drinker, a partier. It was my second marriage, my first marriage. I was always going out. A cheater and everything else, drinking and everything else. I said, please, forgive me of all my sins. Please, I was crying out to Him. Please, please. All of a sudden, I had this warm feeling, and a warm feeling next to me, the presence of something laying next to me, right next to me, a figure laying next to me. When I'm on the gurney, I look over, and wrapped in a white quilt, like a comforter, white quilt, shiny, was next to me with a gray beard, white gray beard, and I saw His face. Everything laying next to me was Jesus was laying next to me right there in the gurney, and He reached out and He said, Brian, be brave, everything's going to be okay. And all of a sudden, this feeling shot through my body like I cannot even explain. This most unbelievable feeling that I could have just like lifted in this. I was just ready at that point for anything in the world that can happen to me. What I just experienced, most amazing thing that I didn't care about anything anymore as far as anything. I knew where I was going. I knew there was eternal life. I knew that Jesus and God exist. I knew there's eternal life. So it didn't matter to me as far as the surgery went. I knew what I experienced there is worth more, that feeling I had inside me. So that whole night, I could not wait for the next morning. Not the fact that my whole family's waiting to see if I survived the surgery. I could not wait to tell them my experience. When those doors opened and they saw me for the first time after the surgery, I said, you are not going to believe this, what I just experienced. And when I came out of the operating room, I had a glow to me. The doctors saw me. They said, where'd you get that tan? Were you on vacation? It was like the feeling that I was feeling inside me, like whatever it did to me, just like I was just glowing with happiness. And I told everybody the experience that you're not going to believe it. Jesus actually was laying next to me and put His hand out to me and told me everything's going to be okay. The feeling that was inside me, I just can't even explain the greatness of this feeling, how it just changed my life. From that moment on, what my wife knows, the changes in me and the changes I made in other people's life. And my whole thing that I get out of this is that Jesus wants to make me a messenger to spread the word and tell people of my experience and make them believers. And that's my sole purpose, I think, of this whole experience. Besides making me a believer, I share this story. I must have told this testimony hundreds of times. Whoever I meet, and people come from other places just to hear it to my house, and I tell it, and it makes them feel good and make them believers, And I had miracles happen in my family, like people who weren't talking for a long time. There was messages that God would give me to tell them. I was writing them on paper, and I couldn't even write after the brain surgery. Everything was mixed up, but He was telling me things to write down to tell her family. And I called a meeting at my house on Easter Sunday last year, and all her family sat there with my kids and all, nieces and nephews sat there, and I told them everything that God gave me the messages to tell them, and I got the family back together. People weren't talking, And everybody was in my house that day knew something spiritual was going on, because it's a feeling that came over everybody, and there was like a vibration noise in my house. They don't know where it was coming from. Like the whole house was vibrating. They looked at my foot. My foot was not even moving, but this noise was vibrating all through the floors. Most amazing, they knew something spiritual was happening, in my house, and they knew this is not regular Brian. Something had to happen to Brian, because I always got the message that week of things I had to tell them to convince them that I did have this experience. So he told me certain things to say to certain people, like my mother-in-law, who I never really got along with, this and that. I called her up. I told my wife, "Who's this?" That's my mother. I said, "How many times did she come to this house? 1,000 times?" I said, did I ever tell you, I told my mother-in-law, did I ever tell you that I love you? Which I never did. Right there, that was one of the signs to show people this is not Brian. Brian will never say that. Brian never speaks like that, especially to my mother. I wasn't that type of person, but they saw the change in me, and I was doing it to other people in the room. So that's how I, show them that what I'm about to tell them is, it's not coming from me. It's coming from a higher power, Jesus. And I've been passing it on ever since. I've been passing it on to people and explain to them. To me, what I get at it, there is no death. There's eternal life. I said, yes, your body, your shell, goes into the ground on the passing, but your soul goes up to eternal life, and that's when your life begins, at eternal life. To me, this is a playground. This is a playground for you to experience sin, like sins, the good, the bad, this and that, until the day when you finally come to rest, and then you go to eternal life. That's when your life begins. That's what I get from all this, and I've been telling this to everybody about my experience, and that feeling, and when I tell this story, when I go to church, whatever, and when I tell it, I would not trade that feeling that I received for all the money in the world. Would not replace that feeling. I would not trade that day for $100 million. Anything. I would not trade it for anything in the world. It's the most unbelievable feeling. To thank God and Jesus for everything. And I'm happy, believe it or not, when I tell people that, okay, I have brain cancer, I had 2 surgeries, I had another surgery January 24th, but yet they say, how are you smiling? I'm smiling because of my experience, and because of Jesus and God himself, who came down to me, and how I'm a true believer now. And I believe in his word 1,000,000% and everything. It just made me a different person. And of course I don't want to pass on for my family grieving for me. But I used to have a big fear over it. Now, the fear is gone, because I'm completely at rest with it, because I know where I'm going. My faith is 1,000,000%, and I know where I'm going and everything else. And it just carried me through everything, through 2 surgeries and all I've been through, in this it's only a year, 2 surgeries, and out of the hospital I'm on 3 chemotherapies and everything else. And yes, I wake up smiling every day, and I owe it all to God and Jesus, and I want to thank you for everybody listening. I want to thank you.
I'm taking it back, Brian. All righty? No. And ask his wife if she knows it's real, because she's seen the difference.